What do you up to?
No, you're good. Yeah, I can move this stuff now. I can move this stuff too.
Hey, what's up? Hey, how are you? Oh, she's out.
They're closed.
She's out to grad school. She's going to be a doctor. Went to Washington with his husband.
Very good.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you.
You good?
Yeah.
All right.
No, did someone leave an earpiece back here?
That's one of our guys.
Okay.
The guy was just in here, BJ McFarland. Yeah, this lieutenant, BJ, MAC.
It's the mom and what two mom is the baby.
MAC capital F-A-R-L-A-N-D. Yes.
You said you might keep the mom.
Say again.
I want to keep the mom, yeah. If she's like.
He's the supervisor of the major crime.
You have a cat already, right?
It's my boyfriend's cat, but like I'm there, like we got him together.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to do shovels.
Does the cat have a family? Does she have a name on her?
I'm gonna name her Ruth.
I like it.
Ruth Beer Ginsburg.
That's beautiful.
All right, thank you.
I just don't think I could foster an animal and keep it up.
Yeah, it's just for fun.
Oh, yeah.
the Raven stuff. We got to start screening people when we come in here. I love you, but
I guess if I was wearing the
but
black
Steve,
and gold,
yeah, you'd be
if I was
fine.
wearing black
Yeah,
and gold, I'd be welcome.
we'd have you a better seat.
When we're done, Chief, I'll tell you exactly why I'm wearing this today.
Okay. I hope you lost a bet.
No, it's not. I have a lot of reasons.
Right, give it just a minute or two. Just a couple people rolling in and we'll get started. I know time is of the essence.
Supposed to wear pink today. I'm not pretty sure it's in the law.
What's the pink for, Joe?
It's Cancer Awareness Day at WXRI. Wednesday, we wear pink.
Except when we forget.
And my,
We're doing a campaign here in
There's like a
October
grass note like
where all of our officers will wear.
Oh.
my pink shirt is in the pile that has to go to dry cleaners. I found it this morning, it was like, hey, it's like,
Oh, I haven't worn this in a week.
You know you can have dressing. She's like,
Good to go.
get out the door.
she's gonna make a picture in front of the pink police car today.
What brings that?
I know. Parking near the statue is my good live shot location. I like that live shot spot. Makes it pretty when that car's sitting there. Ryan, does High Point Christian play football this week?
They're away for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Well, they're not playing for 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
They play Thursdays or they play Fridays?
Fridays, Thursdays, that's down to the rain.
That's why it's swapped, okay.
Yeah, they suspended sports for 2 weeks and we've been moved on.
All right. True, we expect anybody else, or we think we're good to go?
I think we're good to go.
Okay. I won't waste any more time. We'll get started. First off, I appreciate every one of you being here this morning and taking the time out of your schedules to come and listen to us. To give you a little rundown of what we're going to do here, I'm going to review an incident from yesterday, a pretty impactful incident for our city, and I'm going to give some brief details of that, and then I'm going to go into some notes, some points that I want to make as the interim chief of police. And I also have with me up here this morning is Lieutenant B.J. McFarland. He is the supervisor of our violent crimes unit, and he will be here to address any specific questions you may have about yesterday's incident. So he's much more in tune with the investigation from yesterday than I am, so direct questions on that event will go to B.J., but we'll get to that part as we move along through this process. But we do want you to ask questions, and we'll do the best we can to answer them, I promise that. So that'll give you a little outline of what we're going to do here. But please, ask your questions in just a minute. But again, appreciate all of you being here. A little incident synopsis from yesterday. Yesterday, at probably about 5:45 in the morning, we got in a neighborhood on the north side of High Point off of Johnson Street. We started getting calls from citizens about suspicious subjects walking around in the neighborhood, pulling on car doors. This was confirmed through actually personal observation and a lot of security camera footage where people were looking at their security cameras they had in their homes. Our officers responded and may end up making contact with an individual sitting in a car. They made contact with that individual. During the course of that, the subject pulled out a gun, fired at our officer at close range. Luckily, he missed. Our officers retreated a little bit, took some cover, returned fire as that individual jumped into another car and then fled the scene. For the remainder of the morning and for the majority of the day we were out on this call, we conducted a pretty good landmass search for the individual who ran and ended up making an arrest yesterday morning of one subject, and we'll get more into that in just a minute. So that's just a little quick bullet point synopsis of yesterday morning. So many more things happened out there. It's unbelievable. But I don't want to pull any punches or mince any words on this. This was nothing short of an attempt to murder our police officers yesterday. It's as simple as that. I cannot stress how impactful this is and could have been to our city and our community. Those officers are part of our family here at the police department. Of course, we value them. They have lives outside of this place just like everybody else. Again, this was nothing short of an attempted murder yesterday by criminals. Another important point that I don't want to make sure we don't miss out on is this neighborhood that they were in, breaking into cars yesterday morning. It's a populated neighborhood, and I think we had a lot of people at the time frame of this were getting up, going to work, heading out the door, stuff like that. And a lot of people are actually in the neighborhood running and exercising and stuff like that. And one of my biggest fears, especially as the interim chief of police or just as an individual, is what if one of our citizens would have walked out yesterday morning and made contact with these individuals? What if they would have confronted them in some way, shape, or form? We have a brazen act yesterday of attempting to shoot a police officer. Do you think these criminals would have hesitated to shoot an innocent civilian in their efforts to get away with their criminal activity? You know, I don't. I think that you've already hit the peak level with criminal activity by trying to shoot an officer of the law. So I can only imagine what they would do to a citizen. And I don't like the way that makes me feel because I love this city. I think our citizens deserve to be protected and safe. And I don't think that was the case yesterday morning in this city. So there's a lot of impactful pieces to this puzzle that we just fail to see. We need to look bigger than just what happened yesterday and what could have happened. You got to start looking at those things and digesting them and figuring out how we're going to go from here. Specific incident numbers regarding yesterday, Lieutenant McFarland will go over those in just a minute. He'll talk a little bit about the number of cars that were broken into, the property that was stolen, specific property that was stolen, the cars that were stolen. I don't think until you hear the numbers that he's going to give you is you really understand the gravity of what was going on in the neighborhood yesterday morning, because it was quite a bit of stuff. It's almost staggering when you get down to the numbers. But I'll let Lieutenant McFarland go over those. Again, he's much more in tune with the case than I am. But I will tell you this, and this is one of the main reasons we wanted to come in here and talk to everybody today. This is not an isolated incident. Yesterday morning is not the first time we have gone into neighborhoods with numerous motor vehicle B&Es with a significant amount of property stolen out of unlocked cars. This is just one of, it's been going on for years, I think. Am I correct, Lieutenant Truitt? Yes, we've had a big social media campaign asking people to lock their cars. Simply locking your car will prevent criminal activity. It's a punch of a button on your key fob now or the push of a button inside your door. We are begging people to do that. It will prevent criminal activity. We watch them on camera go car to car. The ones that are locked, they yank on the handle, they move on. When they find the unlocked cars, that's when we start having issues, and that's when we have theft going on. That enhances their criminal activity. We've made it easy on them. So the simple little steps that our citizens can take make it 1,000 times better in the end. But this is not an isolated incident. It's not isolated to just High Point. It is a phenomenon we are seeing across the region and really across the state. Our neighboring agencies are experiencing the same thing. We have criminals who are doing this all over the place. So this won't be the last one for us either. I mean, we're going to have neighborhoods that are going to be tested. And what we're seeing is individuals, groups of them, get dropped off in neighborhoods, and they simply walk through and just yank on doors. And then they'll come get picked up. If they can steal a car, they will. You'd be amazed at some of the things people leave in their cars, especially their own key fob, that when you push the button, will start the car. I know that sounds sort of crazy, but that's what we're seeing out there. And they're looking for stolen cars and any kind of property in there. But again, I'll let Lieutenant McFarland hit the specifics of what's happening out there. It's important to note on this incident that our suspect that we have in custody is from Durham. miles away. We're not talking right next door. We're talking a pretty substantial amount away. He and his friends, if they're friends, drove to this city to commit crimes. That should be concerning to us. Absolutely it should. Our city was targeted by criminals. Since this incident, and even before, we have been in contact with numerous law enforcement agencies in that corridor between us and where these offenders live. And we are looking at some plans now to jump into action, work together to start combating this. I think it's going to take a group effort. It's not just going to be simple one agency that handles it all. Our criminals have shown to be mobile, and they're moving all over the place to commit these crimes. So we're going to have to put some work in on the law enforcement side and work as a unit to get this done. The specific charges that we have for our offender that we charged yesterday, I'll let Lieutenant McFarland go over those. He can break those down a little bit more. Specific question, I know it's probably going to come up, so I'll go and answer it. I'll give you the short answer. Was our offender yesterday gang affiliated? Yes, he was. We confirmed that through neighboring agencies where he lives. It doesn't matter what gang or what set or anything like that at all. The simple fact that he is. And I'd be safe to say that the people that were with him yesterday are part of that gang as well. Even though we haven't located them and arrested them, I think the best practice from law enforcement and years of experience tell us they're probably in the same gang. So one of the biggest things I wanted to stress today is the community impact that this incident could have had on High Point and really everyone around us. Too many people are going to look at this and say, oh, this was just a larceny. They're just stealing stuff. It's not really, they're not hurting anybody. Absolutely not. We can see that. This is much, much bigger than a larceny, and I can only stress what it would have done to our city had it gone in another direction. You know, the questions I specifically have, they're for you, and you don't answer these. You can answer them in your head. What if our police officer would have been shot yesterday? What does that do to our city? Really, what is the impact for the city of High Point if one of our officers gets shot? I don't know. I know that hurts us internally. He's one of ours. And that's clearly not what we want to have happen. But how does our city react to that? How do you recover from it? Because that has not been something we've seen here inside this city, and I sure don't want to go down that road. But that's a true community impact right there. What if, when our officers returned fire, that we had actually hit the suspect? And for all I know, we may have hit the suspect. I don't know. We don't know who they are. They fled. What if we would have shot the suspect and he'd have died at the scene? What kind of impact is that on our community? Look across the nation. We see it all the time. Officers are involved in shootings, justified, unjustified, whatever it may be, and there's a specific community reaction that we've seen. What is our community going to do? Are we going to be like a lot of the other cities that see civil unrest immediately upon one of these actions taking place? Or are we going to be given the time to investigate properly and come out and give the facts like we're trying to do now? That's why we waited 24 hours to get this out. We wanted to make sure we got our ducks in a row and we're giving you good information before just throwing something out there. And I do think we have a duty to give you stuff the day of, and Lieutenant Truitt did a good job of that yesterday. But it really takes a lot of time to digest these things and dissect it into a true investigative mode. But my question is, what is our community going to do? What are we going to stand for as a city? Because I'm going to tell you, as a police department, we operate on a certain level. There's an expectation I expect as the interim chief of police. I think there's a level that all of our officers expect as members of this police department. It's going to be professional. So we're not going to do things that are out of those operating parameters. But I would like to think that our community would rally around us if something like that happened. And we're different than a lot of the other communities that you see. But I will tell you, the danger created by the suspect was pretty large. I have to think ahead of the game. When the two fled in the car yesterday, I'm sure their driving was less than stellar, leaving that neighborhood and trying to get out of town. What if one of our officers would have pulled in behind the car? Do you think they're going to stop? They've already shot at a police officer. I can't imagine they're going to pull over blue lights. So we're probably engaging in some sort of high-speed vehicle pursuit for some people who just tried to kill a police officer. That creates a greater danger to our public that I don't think we need. And I don't want to have that, but I think we have a duty as a law enforcement agency to go after criminals like this. This is absolutely the ones that are worst for your city. They're impact individuals. They drive your violent crime up, and the quality of life inside your city down is what it rolls down to. So there's much bigger things that could have happened yesterday, and luckily they didn't. I'm thanking the stars that our officer wasn't shot. I don't want other individuals to be hurt. I do want people in custody. But there's a lot of impactful events that could have happened yesterday, and they didn't. Things sort of fell on the right things. Now, would I love to have those people in jail today? Yes. We'll keep working those angles, trying to identify folks, and if we can make charges down the road, we absolutely will. But for the police department, I will tell you this. We will continue to focus on violent crime inside this city. It is going to be one of our #1 priorities. I will never deviate from that plan as long as I'm sitting in the interim chief of police position. I understand that may be for a very limited amount of time, but I think it's a department-wide focus that we have, and we're all committed to it. So violent crime is going to be our thing. I think our citizens deserve it. And it's a very simple approach, and there's nothing really secretive about it. When it comes down to it, it's based on 3 things. We're going to concentrate on the right people, the offenders like this, who are impactful, who do the brazen crimes, the ones who probably really need to go to jail for an extended period of time to stop that activity. We're going to concentrate on those folks. It's not everybody who needs to go to jail. Absolutely not. That's not what we're saying. But there's some. They've been given plenty of opportunities, and they have not corrected their actions. I think we need to have some more enforcement on those folks. So it comes down to people. The second part is cars. It's very simple. These offenders are moving from A to B in cars and committing these offenses. These individuals drove from probably Durham. The car they were in was stolen from Raleigh, so maybe they drove from Raleigh. They drove from there to here in a stolen motor vehicle and then committed these crimes inside of our city. We are going to continue to stop cars inside this city. We are going to make stops based on reasonable suspicion and probable cause. That's what the law allows us to do, and we're going to maintain those parameters. But we will stop cars. That's a good avenue for us to engage in these individuals in a legal way and stop this activity before it starts. So you will not have free reign inside the city to drive all over the place and do as you please. That will not happen inside High Point. Again, I will make sure our officers understand that we're doing it on 2 things, reasonable suspicion and probable cause. I mentioned that twice because it is so important. We cannot deviate from that. We have to maintain those standards. But we will stop cars. Driving inside the city, aside from violent crime, has not been the greatest in the last month and a half. We've had several fatalities from people's poor driving habits, speeding, unsafe movements, and stuff like that. So we're looking to crack down on that a little more inside the city. And we'll get into that in the month of October. We have some specific projects that we're going to start throwing out to address those issues. But in short, we're going to stop cars inside this city. I want to make that very, very known to everyone. So it shouldn't be a surprise when we're doing it. And the last part of that is guns. We're going to come after illegal guns. And I always have to give my disclaimer when I'm talking about guns because I know they're a hot topic. If you're a legal gun owner and you follow the law, we're not worried about you, quite frankly. You're not a concern to us at all. But I will tell you, the individuals who are carrying guns illegally, when I say that, meaning they are prohibited by law from possessing that firearm, or they're using that firearm in the commission of a prohibited offense, then we want it, and we're going to take it. We're going to take every step that we can to seize those weapons. And our department is all on board with this. Thus far this year, we've taken 324 guns off the street that shouldn't have been there. We're on a record-breaking pace to do it for 2020. But it has been a focus for us. All of our officers committed to this. Again, is it a record? While I'm glad to be taking the guns off the street, and the numbers are high, I'm also disappointed in it. That also tells me we got a lot of guns out there that shouldn't have been there. So it's a twofold process, but it will be our focus. Violent crime, I think our citizens deserve it. We're gonna do what we can as a police department to stamp it out, but it's people, cars, and guns. Again, there's no secrets to it at all, and I won't make any bones about it. You'll hear me speak about it again when you hear me talk. Last 2 little points here before I turn it over to Lieutenant McFarland. A couple of good things, though. Well, it's not all doom and gloom. I want to tell you, yesterday was really exonerated. Well, no, that's not the right good best word I can use, but our citizen support yesterday was through the roof. It was wonderful. Now, we'll tell you, as a city, for months and months and months, and for the longest time as I can remember, we've always had the support of our citizens. You know, I do think we operate in a fashion that is very professional, and we have that good relationship with our community, and I like to think that transfers into doing the work out here in the street. But our citizen support has been wonderful for months and months and months, even when law enforcement is not held in the highest regards, as you can see. But our folks have been wonderful. Yesterday was just another example. We had citizens out there because we were out there for an extended period of time. It was almost all day. So that becomes very taxing for us as a police department. We still have calls to answer for service in the rest of the city and a job to do. So our citizens were bringing us snacks, water, They were coming to us and providing us security footage from their cameras, aiding in our investigation. We don't always see that sometimes, but we did yesterday, and it enhanced our investigation. It really did. I'm looking at some of the stuff that BJ and those guys are putting on the table, and our citizens were a big part of it yesterday. But I think it lends to what I'm saying. Our community does support us, and I think we need that. We absolutely need that right now more than ever. I specifically want to thank the community that was directly affected by this incident yesterday, because we really prohibited them from doing a lot. We had that place on lockdown for an extended period of time, and I know it disrupted their lives to an extent, but they were very patient and cooperative with us. So I think we owe them as a police department a huge thanks for just sort of bearing with us during this incident. But that consistent support we're going to need as we keep moving forward. This will not get any easier. Like I said, this is not a one-time thing for us. There will be more incidents like this, and they could be more impactful. It could have a different result the next time, and that's important for us to understand. How are we going to react to it is what I'm trying to get to. I've always cautioned every community meeting I speak at. I tell them, look at what's going on out there. You see what's happening. Let's be different. Let's make an effort. Let's take a stance. Let's be different in our approach. Now, you have to trust what we're going to do as a police department. That brings me to my next point, my last point, is that we're going to be committed to professional policing here at the High Point Police Department. Our citizens should be very, very proud of the way their police department jumped into action yesterday. This incident kicked off early, and it was a holistic approach throughout our police department to get this thing under wraps and do the best we can to solve it. I watched and listened on the radio to almost every unit inside our police department jump into action to find a job to help out yesterday. I mean, our violent crimes unit, clearly they're going to be involved in it from patrol. Our community engagement unit was out there. Our traffic unit was out there helping. Housing authority was helping. Street crimes. Our property crimes unit. I mean, you name it, they were out there yesterday along with our lab and everybody else. So I am very, very proud of what I listened to and watched yesterday. And here's the most beautiful part of this whole deal, is that if everything that happened yesterday and all the ducks that fell in a row and all the great stuff that was done, a grand total of 0 was directed by the interim chief of police, the head of this agency, me. I got on the radio one time yesterday at 6 o'clock in the morning to ask a question, and I didn't say another word the rest of the day. The rest of it was our folks doing their jobs and doing it well. I think when your police department is operating like that, then you got something good going, and our citizens need to know that. They didn't get to see and hear what I did yesterday. They only see little snippets of it. But that's the way we operate on an everyday basis, and that's what I expect really as our police department, because I'm looking at talented individuals. I told our supervisor yesterday, we have the right players in the game at this place to make a difference. They are absolutely here. It's your next leadership component after I leave and everybody else is gone too. We are built well. But I'm very proud of our folks. I will tell you, our pledge to the citizens of High Point is this. We're going to operate within the law. We're going to operate within our policies and procedures. They're there for a reason. We're going to do work that's in accordance with our training. We are going to deter and prevent through a lot of community engagement. It's not all enforcement for us anymore. We're going to try to get out there in front of things and stop them before they begin. But I think that's becoming an improved relationship with our community. We're going to operate inside law enforcement best practice, because things go across this nation all the time. We can learn from other agencies. Some do's and some don'ts. And then the last part, we're going to operate with common sense. That's what I expect every one of our officers to do on a daily basis. But that's our commitment to the city of High Point. Our citizens deserve to be safe. Yesterday, I don't think they were safe. And I think it's our job to address that. I mean, if you look at the city slogan, you know, we want to, as a community, as a city, we're looking to make a safe environment so we can be livable in the most prosperous community in America. The safe job is ours as a police department, and we are committed to that effort. And like I told you, our violent crime approach, we're going to stick with it. Some people may not like that, but I'm telling you, our citizens deserve it, and I plan to give it to them. If somebody wants to deviate from that course of action, then I'm probably not the man for the job, because we are committed to it as an agency. And the last part, I want to do this too. I'll make sure specific thanks to the Guilford County Sheriff's Department yesterday. They were out there on the ground with us, helping, and were very much engaged with us. It was just like that. We were High Point police officers and Guilford County deputies side by side working this case, doing dog tracks and everything else to help locate this subject and bring this case to a close. So kudos to them for assistance. We're having a much better operational relationship with that group over there, and we're really starting to do some fantastic work in the street alongside of them. Okay? And now I'll turn it over to Lieutenant McFarland. He can go over some specifics for you.
Yesterday morning, about 4 in the morning, we know a group of individuals went into the neighborhoods in the area of Skeet, Coveland, Johnson, and started checking door handles. They were checking door handles, pulling on doors, and entering cars in those neighborhoods. At about 5:35 in the morning, a resident from Fairport Court called in reference to suspicious activity of 2 people checking their doors and checking their neighbors' doors. As officers were arriving, they encountered at least 2 people in the roadway who immediately attempted to flee. And then when officers went to detain them and to investigate that suspicious activity, one of the subjects fired a handgun at the officer from a driver's seat of a vehicle, then exited the vehicle and fled on foot. They fled. The 2 officers on scene, they returned fire towards the suspect. The suspect fled on foot on Pond Haven towards Kelso Drive and then entered a vehicle and fled the area. The vehicle that the suspect shot from was a black Audi sedan that had been previously reported stolen out of Raleigh on September 19th. A later search of that vehicle showed that the driver's window had damage on it, consistent with a gunshot wound coming from the driver's seat at an upward angle from inside the vehicle out. In the center console of the vehicle, near the dash, was a 9mm handgun. In the back seat of that vehicle were 2 .22 caliber rifles and a 20-gauge shotgun. All of these weapons were checked and have not been reported stolen at this time. There were also 2 9mm shell casings located inside the vehicle. They were both the same ammunition brand that was found inside that handgun. And then on the vehicle exterior, located at the base of the windshield, near the windshield wipers, was a different brand of 9mm casing. The vehicle that was used to flee the scene is believed to be a 2010 Subaru Legacy. A black 2010 Subaru Legacy was reported stolen from a nearby neighborhood, a nearby residence, during the investigation, and so far that vehicle has not yet been recovered. One witness to the incident reported that the suspect fired at least 3 rounds at the officers and continued to point the handgun at the officers as the suspect was fleeing, running up the roadway. Another caller reported hearing at least 3 shots, then a brief pause, and then additional shots. As officers were responding to the area and setting up a perimeter for this rather large search, we did a search for both the suspects and evidence. During that search, our canines were deployed. We also had assistance by Guilford County. At approximately 7:14 in the morning, Corey Rogers, he's 19, out of Durham. He walked out of a wooded, brushy area, and he surrendered to High Point Police Department officers without any incident. He was arrested and charged with 2 counts of breaking and entering a motor vehicle and 2 counts of larceny stemming from the incidents on yesterday morning. A check of Rogers revealed he had multiple warrants for arrest for breaking and entering of a motor vehicle and larceny from Durham and from Graham Police Department. He had warrants for larceny of a firearm from Durham Police Department and orders for arrest for failure to appear for 4 counts of breaking and entering a motor vehicle and larceny and carrying a concealed gun from Mebane Police Department. Total yesterday, he was charged and arrested for 20 charges, only 2 of which stemmed from yesterday's incident. He was placed under bond at Guilford County Jail with a $244,000 bond. His first appearance is later today. Additional charges are pending further investigation. At this time, he's not been charged with the shooting towards the officer. At this point in the investigation, unfortunately, it does have to slow down, and we have a lot of evidence and a lot of stuff that we have to review. But at this point in the investigation, we can confirm that at least 3 subjects have broken into or attempted to break into at least 41 cars in that area. They broke into at least 1 residence and stole 2 different vehicles yesterday morning. We have recovered 2 stolen vehicles. One was stolen and recovered within close proximity and time frame to when it was stolen. and the other one is the Subaru Legacy that has already been mentioned. And the other recovery was the stolen Audi out of Raleigh. Items stolen, items that we know have been reported stolen at this time is one 9mm handgun with a holster. It was stolen from a vehicle. We had multiple debit and credit cards stolen. The keys that were used to steal the Subaru Legacy was stolen out of a vehicle, a separate vehicle. Clothes and personal checks and those items. So far, prior to yesterday's event, the chief already mentioned that we've seized 324 illegal guns. A number very specific to High Point. During this past year, we've had 51 guns stolen during larcenies of motor vehicles. So in addition to locking your car doors, we're asking that you don't leave your valuables and we don't leave your handguns in your car. Please take those inside and secure those inside your house. I'm not prepared to say how many times the officers officers returned fire. That part is still under investigation. And at this point, I'm not prepared to say where all those rounds went. That part is still under investigation as well. Anything you wanted to add on that, Chief?
Yeah, I will tell you, BJ, I'll let the Violent Crimes Unit do their investigational part of this, and I expect them to some things. I meant to tell you that earlier. There's some things we just won't tell you yet, because it's like any investigation. It's open, and we're trying to make a case here. But our officers did return fire. It was several rounds that we fired back. And we're trying to make sure where those rounds, every round that we fire, we're accountable for, in our opinion. I told you we're going to do professional policing, and that is a piece of the puzzle too. So we're trying to examine that to make sure where that damage went. We don't know where all of them went. For all I know, we may have a suspect that was hit yesterday. I do not know that yet. So again, he's not trying to be cryptic in his answer. That's a calculated effort for us because we are going to take steps to investigate every piece of that. There's a lot of internal things that will now be kicking in when we review the shooting incident from the police level. We'll do that every time we fire a weapon. I think that's the duty we have to the public to make sure we're maintaining our training accordance, I told you, and the standards that we expect out of our officers. So we'll address those things internally as we go ahead, but in the answer, yes, we did fire several rounds back at the suspect.
The last thing that I want to say before opening to other questions is if you were a victim in this neighborhood and have not yet reported it, please report it to us. If you were one of the individuals that was involved as a suspect, come and turn yourself in to us. And if there's any information, please utilize the police department or Crime Stoppers.
The quick thing, we listened to BJ's statements and the impactful piece of this. Let's break it down real quick. They were in our city for an extended period of time because we know from video stuff they were here started at 4-something in the morning, and we didn't get the call until 5:45. So clearly we did enter 41 different cars, stole a substantial amount of property to include firearms, money, and every other thing they had listed in there, broke into a resident's house, and then tried to kill a couple stolen cars, and then tried to kill some cops. That's a pretty impactful event. And if that little sequencing right there, those bullet points don't sink into our community that we have an issue that we have got to start addressing holistically throughout the system, then we are lost. Because I can tell you, this is not the first time these individuals have done this. They have a history of it. They've gotten more confident with it from not being caught, or even being caught and charged, and they're still out. So there's a lot of pieces of this puzzle we're going to have to start putting together on many, many levels. All right, thank you. Questions? We'll just go hands. I'll let BJ, sorry.
Sir?
I'll let BJ do it.
Chief Stroud, Lieutenant McFarland, can you say if it's not investigatory, how close the bullet came to striking this officer? Are we talking about less than a foot, a matter of inches?
BJ,
At this point, all I can say is it was close. But I don't have a specific measurement at this point.
just to reiterate, disturbingly close. I don't care if you're 100 yards away. I don't want that either for our folks. But clearly in this incident, it is an eye-opening thing. Whoa, hang on. And I've been involved in a lot of incidents throughout my 25-year career, but not really this up close and personal.
One quick follow-up. Do y'all know offhand when was the last time an officer was fired upon in this way? Or in any way? I couldn't answer that right off the top of my head. And that's why it's so impactful for us. We get something like this, and we want to put this down as quickly as possible. It's not going to be tolerated in our city. I don't want this to become commonplace, that's for sure. It's fair to say a period of a year. It's been a while, yes, sir. I can't remember. Well, the fact that I can't say, hey, this is the last time it happened, tells me it's been a while.
And you've been with the department how long?
25 years.
Thank you, Chief.
Now, we've had that in between 25 years, don't get me wrong. I've been in several instances myself where I've experienced gunfire back at me, but clearly I just can't think of our last incident prior to this. So, Bales Chapel, yeah, a little over a year. That was actually in the county, but that was a fatality, a fatal shooting that our officers and Gifford County Sheriff's deputies were involved in. Thank you, Anthony.
Ma'am, you had a question?
Yes, Rashida Cobb of Fox 8 News. So I know that you mentioned that a police officer was put in danger, but a lot of people were also put in danger. You mentioned that as well. I spoke to a family who one of the bullet holes went through their window. One of their family members had just finished praying. One of the bullets ricocheted inside. What can you say as a department to ensure their safety, to make them feel a little bit safer moving forward?
Yeah, I think that's probably one I should answer. I don't think that should go to Lieutenant McFarland. Again, that's what we're looking at internally now, because I think we have a duty to make sure they are safe, whether it be from the criminals or from us. I mean, I think we're accountable for every round that leaves the end of our barrel. And that's the part that we will really start looking at now. Luckily, we are just hitting our in-service firearms training now. So it's a great chance for us to really revisit this and sort of bring us into check. Now, things are happening fast out there, and I mean, it's dark. A lot of things going on, and you're taking enemy fire is what it comes down to. So I'm not condoning missing or anything like that at all, but clearly some of those rounds that impacted were probably ours. And I do not like putting our citizens in that situation. That is something that we are not, we're not exactly proud of. But again, I'm not condoning it by any stretch of the imagination, but we are looking at that. So to make them safe, I mean, that is not commonplace for us, and there's not an acceptable miss rate for us. Let's put it like that. I think every round should impact the target that is intended when it's shot at.
I have a question. Just to confirm, you all are still looking for the two other suspects in this case, correct?
We are.
Yes. And do you happen to believe for any reason that they might still be in the High Point city or area?
We don't know where they went when they fled. We're exploring the option that they may still be here. We presently believe it would probably be an associate of the person we didn't arrest, who was from Durham. So we don't know where they went from here.
And how many weapons, once again, were found in that vehicle?
There was four. The handgun from the center console, and then two rifles and a shotgun from the back seat.
How's the officer doing at this time? I mean, what an event. I can't imagine.
I've not spoken with him directly at this point. I know that his command staff have been interacting with him. But as far as we know, that there's no injury, and they're doing well.
Yeah, I spoke to both officers yesterday morning myself. And again, the time I spoke with them, we're within an hour of this happening. So clearly things are still happening fast. You got to get over the stress inoculation and then coming down what just happened. So we'll end up continue to follow up. Again, these are our folks. I mean, we're going to do the best we can to help them through this process. This is not an easy thing. I think so many times that the movies make it like it's an easy thing. Hey, you fire your gun and you move along. It's not. There's a lot of mental things that happen with it too. And we'll make sure we keep our officers in check, and we'll help them out any way we can. But when I talked to them yesterday morning, I mean, they were both clearly, I mean, we're just came off the incident, so we're not bright-eyed, bushy-tailed over it or anything like that at all. But I think we'll be okay, but that only be an individual thing. Everybody reacts differently. But we'll keep a check on them, I can assure you that.
So is it my understanding the officer had a partner with him?
There were two officers out there, yes ma'am.
Okay.
Are either of them taking time off?
We'll establish that as we go along, and we're not under any kind of protocol where they have to. We don't have, that we know of, an individual who's actually shot or anything like that. So right now, we'll investigate it as a normal use of force through our policy and procedures, which we do every single time, no matter what it is, but especially when we fire a weapon. So they're not required to take any time off yet, and they are cleared to return to duty as is. But we will keep, as much like your question, we will keep a check on them to make sure when they're ready. We will not put them back on the street until they're ready. This is a team event. It's not just us giving direction. We'll involve them in the process. No, they will not. Good question. And when he asked, will the SBI be involved in the investigation? Normally, anytime we fire a weapon and someone is on the end, there's actually a victim on the end of that shooting. The SBI, we will ask them to come in and investigate our case and remove ourselves from it. That is not the case here because we do not have anybody that we know of that was struck by the rounds.
Ma'am?
Yeah, Karen Myers, WTOV News. You mentioned the gang activity and that these guys are in a gang. What gang are they in?
We would have to get that from Durham, and we have a whole, we're not going to release that right now because there is some connection that's still going to investigate it, but we did make contact with home-based agencies where these folks are from, and they confirmed, yes, they're in a gang. So, and I said, to me, it doesn't matter. I mean, it really doesn't, which gang they're in or which set they're in. This is gang-affiliated activity, which is clearly dangerous to our community.
What's the next step for, I believe his name is Mr. Rogers, who's currently in Guilford County Jail? Will he also be transferred out to the other cities and towns where he's has certain outstanding warrants and charges as well?
That's a much slower process. It's going to depend on, one, what happens today with first appearance, depending on what happens when the judge reviews his bond. It'll also depend on if additional charges are drawn and when additional charges here are drawn. And then it'll be depending on the court systems for each of those counties or each of those jurisdictions in that when their next court date is and what's the process for having him available for those court appearances.
You mentioned that none of the firearms that were inside of that stolen vehicle were reported stolen. I know you guys also went through and picked up some of the bullets. Did any of those bullets match the description of the gun that was stolen inside the neighborhood?
So the gun that was stolen inside the neighborhood was a 9mm. We do have a 9mm casing that is different that was recovered from near the windshield of the vehicle. We do not know yet if it matched what was inside that gun. That's information that we're following up on.
Can y'all say at this point how many rounds entered a vehicle or a house?
No, we don't know that. Yeah, we're still trying to account for that part. No.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh, can you, excuse me, can you just clarify real quick? You said 41 cars were broken into. Does that include door handles that were checked, or is that successful?
Those are the ones that we can confirm that somebody either went into or we have some type of evidence that they did indeed check those door handles. Okay. Not every one of those 41 were actually broken into. Some vehicles in a driveway, one was locked, one was not. They pulled on one, went in another. So we're slowly going through each of those, and we will match up. There is a difference between breaking into a vehicle and attempting to break into or tampering with that vehicle. But those are the ones that we can confirm. It works out to at least 30 different addresses in those areas where we can confirm one of these three individuals went up to, pulled on the door handle or entered a car.
And are you seeing, is it only trying to check for unlocked doors, or is it breaking windows as well?
Most common is pulling on unlocked doors. When we leave our car doors unlocked, we make it easier for them. There's a lot of different things that were involved. If it's rather hard to break a car window, and it makes noise, which might alert somebody. All of the video evidence shows that these individuals were comfortable. They walked through the neighborhood at a leisurely pace. They walked up. Motion lights didn't bother them. Being worried about Ring cameras or similar cameras, doorbell cameras, didn't bother them. They were very nonchalant, pulled on the door handle, entered the car. They weren't worried about vehicle lights. And then they slowly got out of the car and walked on and continued to their next car. We do have some evidence that because there was three individuals, they split up, and everybody took like one side of the street and one walked down the middle, kind of looked as a lookout, or they were leapfrogging cars as they went.
It's very brazen. When you watch the videos, that just tells me it's not the first time they've done this. We've gotten very comfortable with it, and that is point I made in my notes earlier. That's why it's so disturbing and unnerving for our citizens, because they were very comfortable in their actions last night. And unfortunately, I believe they would probably be very comfortable in engaging a citizen who got in their way. I really do believe that after watching this. So that's the concerning part to me, is our citizens were put in harm's way unknowingly.
You mentioned the Ring security app. I know that you guys have been getting it from a lot of the neighbors. How helpful has that been in the investigation, and are you guys teaming up with Ring at some capacity to ensure you can continue?
That's a good question.
We are. We partner with Ring, and we also partner with our community engagement unit. They They're very active with community watches, so we're going to partner with all of those. Having the ability to see what was going on is always a big help. Whenever we have video evidence of what happened, it tells the story much better than me trying to tell it. So that partnership is awesome. Two, the neighborhood just providing that to us has been awesome. Unfortunately, even though they're small little clippets of video, that takes time for us to go through. And I mentioned that now the investigation slows down. It's going to take us some time, and we may not have any updates for a little while because we have to go through all those. And they all come in at different times. We know that they started pulling on door handles about 4 in the morning. We didn't receive our first call until 5:35. As people woke up, then they checked their Ring doorbells or they saw their car, they made the call. So we have, with that many houses, with that many vehicles, we have to go back and we're going to double check and make sure that we spoke with all the victims. And we got all of the property and everything that we believe happened there. So unfortunately, that part takes time.
Chief, if I may, 2 or 3 questions. Number one, you wake up, there's not a neighborhood in our city that hasn't had this happen.
Mm-hmm.
What do folks need to do if they discover someone walking through their streets lifting things? Because you just said, do you confront them? What is the things that they should do?
No.
And second, how frustrating is it that guns are getting stolen out of cars in this way? That there are all these guns there? If you may,
Sorry. First, yes, you're correct. This has happened in neighborhood after neighborhood or neighborhood, all of our city. Doesn't matter which one it is or where it is. This has happened everywhere. So my advice to the general public would be, especially, I told you, I think you have to think the worst. I would not confront. I know that's hard to do as an individual. That's your stuff. You've worked, you've paid for it, you own it. I get that. But I would much rather you call us and let us deal with it. We're trained much more in those areas. We'll get in there and we'll investigate like we should, but I would not encourage this. And again, it's one of my greatest fears. I said it in my notes. If we'd had a citizen come out yesterday and get in the way, what would have happened? We're at a different level if that happens too. I love our police officers. We have a duty. We got a job to do, and we're going to do it every single time. But those citizens did not sign up for that. They really did not. So that's a fearful thing for me. But on the guns, very frustrating. It is. It's a firearm. They should not be left in cars. I don't know how else to put that other than that. We don't allow our police officers to leave guns in cars overnight. It's part of our policy. We remove them because it takes that away. We do not want our guns out in the street either. So, yes, to answer your question bluntly, it is very frustrating, but it is a lot. What, 51 so far that we've seen through the year that have been stolen? Someone took their firearm and said, I'm going to leave it in my car tonight. That cannot be, I'm not sure the thought process that goes behind that. I really don't. I don't know how anybody would justify doing that. So, yes, it's quite frustrating. But you wouldn't believe the amount of property that people leave in their cars aside from guns. But, yes, with firearms being the most impactful.
Were your officers wearing body-worn cameras, or was there a camera in the car, that you all got this information from?
I'm gonna venture a guess on the body-worn camera as being no. We're just starting our body-worn camera process. We're in the process of rolling them out to the tune of $1.5 million. But it's a slow process because we have to outfit everyone. And I don't think either one of those two were outfitted with a camera, a body-worn camera. Now, the car probably did have a watch guard video, which they'll be reviewing as part of it. But all of that depends on where you were parked and how your camera was oriented when they hit the street. So we were out of our cars when this happened, so it's probably not going to capture that part of it. Anything else? All right. We appreciate everyone. I really do. Thank you for being here, because we're going to depend on you to get this message out. It's as simple as that. Whether people are listening or not, I have no idea. But that's up to you to give them that message. But this could have been a lot worse than it was. So.
Is there any identifying factors that you can give us to help you guys out to find these 2 suspects?
Not at this point. Unfortunately, we have to review the video, and we have to. The investigation has to continue.
Chief,
All right.
do you mind you both saying names and titles and spelling it out to ensure that we have every
first?
information correct for?
Sure.
I'm Lieutenant McFarland. Last name spelled MacFarland.
First name?
BJ.
And I'm Travis Stroud, the Interim Chief of Police. My name is spelled TravisStroud. Help you? Good? All right. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.